I think we're live. We are. I'm your host, Michael Liebowitz. Welcome to Crime, Corrections, and Culture. This series we're doing now is we're discussing the book Inside the Criminal Mind by the great Dr. Stanton Samenow. And I'm just going to turn it over to Persephone and let her roar. But remember, super chats, super stickers, very, very much appreciated.
And go buy merch.
And go buy merch.
Yeah. Okay, so we're talking about Inside the Criminal Mind, and in the last episode, we spoke about the first two chapters, and the first two chapters are failure to identify the causes of crime and parents don't turn their children into criminals. And you said that you don't necessarily agree with everything that they say, that they don't give enough. What's the word? They don't give enough.
They don't allow enough weight, I don't think, for the impact that an environment can have on somebody. I think that, and I understand why, you want to put the emphasis on the criminal because it ultimately, in the final analysis, is the criminal's fault that the criminal is engaging in criminal behavior.
So.
What do you mean?
I'm like about halfway through this book.
All right.
And the overwhelming feeling that I've been getting through the beginning of this book is, and I know that this is not what they're trying to convey, but the overwhelming feeling that I get, especially in the beginning, which is not right, is, well, the criminal mind is fucked. And, like, no matter what you try to do, it's just fucked. Because they talk about all of the things that parents try to do. The next two chapters are about peer pressure and school.
Okay. So I'm going to tell you this. Wait till you make it to the end. This is kind of, Sephi, why I want you to read the entire book first. Because, you see, there's stuff coming up that's going to disillusion you of what you're saying.
No, I know. I get that, which is why I prefaced what I was saying with, I know that that's not what they're saying, but that's just the feeling that you get when you start reading it.
Okay.
Also, do you wanna put the show on hold for a week and a half? Because then I can finish the book.
You could have read it over the weekend.
My son, do you have any idea how many things I have to do during the day? You're just like, just read a 400-page book and do my clips and upload to YouTube.
So I actually have with me the original, I can't see it here, copy that Brent and I bought in prison more than 20 years ago. Inside the Criminal Mind, 242 pages.
On my phone, it's 400.
That's lame. That's lame. Okay, let's get to the Criminal Mind. Can we get to the Criminal Mind? Listen, when I would used to read my books in prison on the computer, on the stupid little DS game, it would say like Les Miserables was 14,000 pages.
How long did it take you to read this book?
This one in particular?
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember. It was 20-something years ago. I don't want to pick on you. It puts me in this is how my take. I happen to know how it turns out. I don't want to jump the gun and get into their theory of rehabilitation until we actually get to the theory of rehabilitation. But when you say the sense that I'm getting is that the criminal mind is fucked, well, now I don't want people watching thinking that that's the conclusion. Do you understand?
But I said that I know because I'm far enough along that I know that that's not the
Okay.
end point.
So why don't we focus on actually what's in the book instead of you and me arguing about your neglectful reading habits and misunderstanding of what's coming? We can actually talk about the criminal mind.
deep breaths. Woosa. So anyway, so in the parents chapter, right? You said that you don't think that they put enough stock into.
Okay, so what I actually said was they say parents don't turn children into criminals. That much I tend to agree with. That's true. But they act as if the entire interaction between kids and parents, when the kid is a criminal, it's all the parents are victims. And what I'm saying is that the parents, like they'll say, well, the parents did such and such in response to what the kid was doing. But if we believe in personal responsibility and we believe in volition, the parents don't need to respond that way. The parents are free agents as well, and they do have influence on the kids. I just don't think they determine how the kids turn out. So I think that Samonow's ultimately right about that.
Okay. So then the next chapter is about peer pressure, right?
Yes.
And he basically says that when criminals use this excuse of peer pressure, he says my buddies got me into shoplifting or my friends turned me onto drugs. Everybody I know is doing it. I'm just like any other teenager. This is what they tell others only after they're apprehended when they're trying to avoid punishment. Do you think that's true?
Yeah. I think that people generally, criminals, choose their peer groups. When I was 13 years old, we got evicted from the projects. And so I had to go live with my grandmother in an affluent neighborhood. I immediately, every day, proceeded to get on my bike and ride to the projects because that's where I wanted to be. Those were the kids that I wanted to hang out with. I didn't need to. I know other people who have a similar story. Then I proceeded to go and meet kids in Hartford and hang out with them. And I didn't go and meet the athletes and the kids that were going to college in Hartford. I went and hung around with the troublemakers.
Yeah, so I mean, this is also basically what he says, that criminals seek one another out for their own purposes. They hone in on others who have similar interests. They're not enticed into crime against their will.
Right.
If it basically, so yeah, they're saying that criminals seek each other out, and he gives a whole lot of examples of kids who went and seeked out other criminals. So I mean, I was gonna ask you, like, is that what you did? And you answered that question.
It is. And not only that, and this I underlined in 2004 maybe or 2005 when I initially read the book. Reputation is all important. These youths build and maintain a rep for themselves through the way they talk, their style of dress, and the type of activities in which they engage. I so much wanted the reputation for a badass that drove so much of my behavior. Like it's not even, I don't even know how to explain it. But then he also talks about this. It's in quotes, and he says, people aren't going to fuck with me. That is the youth stance towards his parents, teachers, other kids, the police, and the world in general, and that's absolutely true. I had an idea that you are not going to fuck with me. If you do, you are going to regret it. And he says that the smallest slight to his self-image, the least hint of interference with his plans, may trigger a violent reaction. Absolutely.
So I mean, you skipped ahead a little bit, but
No, I did, but I wanted to read what I had underlined.
so one of my questions was literally like, what kind of rep did you want, and how did you maintain that? You've just answered, you preempted my question.
I did preempt your question. I wanted the rep of somebody who was to be feared, of somebody that was dangerous, of somebody that you ought not to be messing around with.
So in the same part where he's talking about like rep, he talks about how he's talking about one kid in particular, and he says the criminally inclined child has the utmost contempt for responsible boys and girls. And then he's quoting one of the kids that he was working with. Preppies think they're so neat with their little alligator shirts. I'm not going to be a damned preppy. And then another one, to go to school, come home and do homework and be with my parents. That's like being a dog on a leash. I mean, did that like is that how you felt as well?
So it's interesting because I saw a clip earlier, a reel, and it was in the movie Heat. Have you ever seen the movie Heat?
I mean, maybe.
It's with Robert De Niro and Al Pacino, and Robert De Niro is the head of a big bank robbing ring. So the cop Al Pacino meets with Robert De Niro, and they have a discussion. And Al Pacino says to Robert De Niro, "Don't you ever just want a normal life?" And Robert De Niro says, "What the fuck is that? Barbecues and ball games?"
Oh no, how awful.
Right? But that's the thing. It's like you don't want normal. You want the excitement of the criminal life. You don't want to feel like other people are making you do things or telling you what to do. You're the badass, and nobody can boss you. You're gonna kick ass and take names.
Yeah. So
So what, Lady Persephone? What's happening?
I'm just looking at my stuff because I made notes.
Okay.
But you jump ahead and you like
Mess up your flow?
get me all like fucked up. So he talks about how people like prove their toughness,
Yeah.
and then he gives examples about like burning themselves with cigarettes and sticking pins in their arms.
Yeah.
I mean, what like did you do stuff like that?
No.
What kind of things?
It's
did
interesting
you
that you
do?
say that. No, because I was a coward. I'm not harming myself. I always thought that was dumb. That was not for me. Nothing exemplifies that for me better than I went. There's this place in Glastonbury, Connecticut called Cotton Hollow,
Yeah.
and it's a park, and there's a I don't know, maybe I don't know if it's a stream, but there's places there you can swim, and there's also cliffs that you can jump off, dive off into the water. So the friends I was with were going to one of the high cliffs, jumping off into the water, and they said, "Hey, you gonna do it?" And I said, "No, I'm not gonna do that." And the guy said, "Damn, man, this dude will kill somebody. He won't even jump off a cliff." And I said to him, "Well, you have something confused here, because killing somebody is hurting them. Jumping off the cliff, I might get hurt." So no, I was not into that type of stuff.
That's so weird. But it kind of makes sense though. It kind of makes sense.
To me, it
Of
made
course you
perfect
wouldn't.
sense.
Of course you wouldn't care about hurting someone else, but you would care about hurting yourself. I don't see how that. Though I guess that's like to show how tough you are. There were kids in my school who used to do shit like this all the time.
Yeah.
We used to give ourselves smileys, which is when you like burn like you burn
Yeah.
the lighter really hot and then you stick it onto your arm. We used to do that shit
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah, we did that to each other, but I'm not doing that to myself. Maybe I did do that to myself.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, now that you mention, I think I did it to myself before, so maybe I did engage in this type of nonsense. Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, like it is. It's like trying to make yourself seem tough, and it's part of this whole reputation thing.
Yes.
It's silly.
Do you, if
Um,
you want, I mean, you don't have to be, just because I jumped ahead, you can still ask more questions about the area I jumped to if you want. It's fine. I can elaborate. It's not.
Yeah, no, I'm just going through my quotes because I've highlighted like a shitload of things because reading this is really interesting to me. Because again, so much of what he said, like he gives so many examples of like kids that he spoke to, and the whole beginning bit is just kind of explaining how this starts in childhood, how the like criminal personality starts to show up from when you're a child, and it's odd to me to think of kids as being thinking like criminals, right? But then if I think about the stories that you've told about what you were like in school, I'm like, okay. And when I read the examples that he gives of the kids who, like, one was a gangbanger and the other one wasn't, or the kid who says, like, it's like being a dog on a leash to, like, go and do homework and stuff. And I can see how, like, this kind of thinking starts when you're very young.
Yes.
He also says that criminals are loners even when they're surrounded by other people because they can't let anyone get too close. Was it like that for you?
No.
Did you feel like a loner?
No, I had friends that I forged. No, I had friends. I had people that I formed bonds with where we would talk about our problems and things like that. I mean, I probably would have stabbed most of them in the back, when the time came. But I did have friends that I bonded with. We talked about intimate things. That part of it, no, that didn't apply to me. But, as far as going back to kids, I remember one time I was 5 and there was a City Fish. City Fish is a restaurant. It was down the street from my house. It's still there. And there's a guy in a truck and they're driving by. And I said, hey, are you the ice cream truck? No, I'm 5 years old. And the guy says, no, we're not the ice cream truck. I picked up a rock and threw it at the truck. I'm 5 years old. I think I was 6, maybe 7. And I found a little board that was maybe, 1.5 inches by 10 inches. And it had 2 nails coming out of it. And I remember running up behind a kid and, we were fighting and I hit him in the back with the nails coming out. Now, part of this, I mean, when I was 6, a kid in the neighborhood choked me and I went home and my mother told me go hit him with a bottle. So, I mean, that's why I don't like the idea that when you say, they say parents play no role.
Yeah,
I mean, I wanted to be like my father. My father had the reputation for being a badass. Now, if I were given up for adoption and didn't have that, would I have turned out the same way? I don't know. It's impossible to know. I do know that ultimately the choices are mine.
So the thing that he does say is that he says that kids of criminals who are given up for adoption also show these criminal thinking errors when they're adopted by families that are not criminal, whereas the children who are adopted by criminal families don't necessarily develop the same thinking errors. So he's really saying that there's sort of a genetic component there. And even if you're raised by different parents, if your parents were criminals, then you have these things.
So, I mean, genetics and environment obviously play a role in things like temperament, dispositions and whatnot. But the main message is that regardless of genetics, regardless of environment, we still have choices to make. And criminals make the wrong choice over and over and over and over again. And there's one of the things, and I don't want to preempt you too much here, so I won't. Go ahead. You move on.
No, so he says studies of adopted children have provided evidence of the heritability of criminality. Most often cited is the large study in Denmark from the University of Southern California. He found that adopted children of criminal biological parents were more likely to be criminals than adopted children of non-criminal biological parents. Later adoption studies have confirmed these findings. Biology need not be destiny. A person with a biological predisposition to alcoholism does not invariably become an alcoholic. There are people who have a type of brain damage that has been implicated in causing criminal conduct, but by no means do they all become criminals. The same biology and temperament may result in different life outcomes.
Yes.
So he then talks about bullying, right? And he says bullying is a forerunner of future criminality. Bullies case out others to identify vulnerability and pounce on it. They achieve a sense of enormous power by intimidating others and watching them suffer. Were you a bully?
Yes. I also got bullied, but yeah, I was a bully. Sure.
Were you honest with yourself about why you were a bully? Were you honest with yourself when you were this young?
No.
What was your when you were bullying kids, or you were being a dick, or you were throwing rocks at ice cream vans? Like, what story were you telling yourself?
Oh, I was 5 when that happened, so I
No,
don't
I
know.
know, but
Um,
but
and I really don't remember, to be honest. I remember the types of kids that I wanted to hang out with. I remember the older kids in the neighborhood that I looked up to. I remember wanting to be like my father. But other than that, I don't remember internal dialogues that way. And I had never, honestly, I never thought about it until right now. I don't remember having long drawn out conversations with myself as a child. That's weird because I don't remember it. And I have a very good memory, a very, very good, what's the word, memory, episodic memory. And I don't remember the types of thoughts I thought or what I said to myself, not in any detail.
do you remember do you remember any specific instances of being a bully?
Oh yeah, of course.
Can you give me one?
Sure, beating up the neighbor kid, beating up the kid up the street. I mean, it was like a regular type thing. It wasn't like, oh, here's this one instance. David Brookman, or was it Bookman or Brookman? I think Brookman was my neighbor, meaning we shared a duplex, and I used to beat him up all the time. And he asked
Right.
me one time, "Do you think you're a bully?" Uh,
And what did, and you
I,
said,
I don't remember what my answer was, but I don't know. I don't know why. It just I wanted to fight, and I couldn't beat the bigger kids, so I went for the little kids,
well, I mean,
smaller kids.
I feel like that's the answer. You wanted to be
Yeah,
tough, and
yeah,
you knew that you couldn't beat the bigger kids.
sure.
So then he talks about two brothers, one who became a gangbanger and the other one who didn't. Um, Pedro, gangbanging is a little thing in this big world. I wanted to be like Bill Gates, not the guy getting shot at. Teachers and coaches showed me there's a way out. So, and this was two brothers, right? So same, like they were raised in the same way, same parents, same everything. And he uses this kind of story a lot, like of two siblings that turned out exactly the same way. I mean, in exactly opposite ways. Um, do you have any thoughts on that? Because I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I knew twins, and I knew them well. People can't tell them apart. Once you knew them, you could tell them apart. They were twins, same genetics, same environment. Now they did both turn out bad. They're both dead, but they still were different in personality, different in a lot of ways. So yeah, people are different. People make choices. People do things that differentiate themselves. But the thing, and I was going to mention this before, and you just alluded to it, where he says teachers and whatever helped them out. I had a lot of people that tried to help me, teachers, guidance counselors, cops that tried to steer me in the right direction. I just didn't care. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want what they were selling.
So he actually says he talks about a girl who, again, like her parents and teachers and everyone was trying to help her, and she says, "What straight people do for fun, I'll never know." And like she wasn't confused about anything. She didn't need, in her mind, like she didn't need help, right? She was like, I'm doing this because it's what I want. So anybody trying to help her and like point her in the right direction, to her, she's like, well, why would I want to do that? That's not the life that I want to live. And from everything that you've talked about in the past, it sounds like that's what you were like, where they were like, we're trying to help you, and you're like, well, you're trying to help me in the wrong direction. Like, I don't want your help.
Uh, that's what my actions revealed. I don't remember the specific thinking that I had in response to it. I just know that, my current boss, I'll give you a perfect example. He was the youth officer in my town. I showed up to a dance in town. I was 15. I was maybe 16. I was drunk. I was stoned. My father was in prison at the time. he pulled me to the side. He patted me down. And he says, I know you're hammered. Basically, I don't remember the exact words. He said, even if you had something on you, though, I wasn't going to arrest you. And he said, listen, I knew your father when your father was young. He was a good kid, but he had low self-esteem, and he turned to drugs and ruined his life. You don't have, basically, you don't have to go down that route. You don't have to do it. I just didn't listen to it. Okay, whatever. And that's not the only cop that ever talked to me that tried to help me. Guidance counselors, teachers, people. A guy had a guidance counselor take me out to lunch. He was talking to me. Whatever. It didn't register. It wasn't even going that route wasn't even on my radar. I wanted to get high. I couldn't see 2 months into the future. And by the time I started looking into the future, I just wanted to be a gangster. That was it.
That seems to be a big thing. There's a lot of people that's their life goal. Their life goal is to be a criminal, basically,
right.
Or to be not necessarily to be a criminal, but to be feared, to be a gangster.
Yeah. I know it's got to be, for somebody who doesn't think that way, bizarre. I understand that, but that's what it is. That's what's going on.
It's insane to me because I wasn't, when I was in school, I wasn't a straight-laced whatever. I was a child who got into a lot of trouble. I lied, I did drugs, I drank, we did drugs before school. We broke all sorts of rules. We broke all sorts of laws. We were always in trouble with the cops. The cops in our area knew us by face.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's not like for me, I was a straight-laced kid. But then when I hear you say that you wanted to be feared and this was your goal in life, your goal in life was basically to be, I'm like, I don't understand that. Even though I, again, wasn't a straight-laced kid. It's nuts to me.
Yeah, it's nuts. That's why we end up in prison.
So you sought out other kids who also were criminals,
mm-hmm.
right? Even though you had the opportunity in a better area to make better friends.
Mm-hmm.
Is that because at that point you wanted to be feared?
I wanted to be feared. I wanted to be protected. I wanted to fit in.
But that's the opposite of fitting in, because if you're in a
see, that's where you're wrong. That's what you're not. That's the thing. It's not only about being you take your average adolescent. Most adolescents want to fit in with their peer group, right? They want to be a part of a group. They want to be accepted. What peer group, though? What peer group do you want to be accepted in? I didn't want to be accepted by the preppies or the athletes. I didn't care about them at all. I wanted to be accepted by the tough guys, by the criminals. That's who I wanted to hang around with.
I don't understand how your upbringing doesn't have an effect on you
Of course it does. Yeah. That's the thing. It's not about the upbringing, whether it has an effect. The question is it deterministic? Does it deprive you of the ability to make choices? And as you can see, I've got the upbringing, but I've also got a lot of people trying to help me, and I'm ignoring them.
Yeah.
I'm not taking their advice. And, this continues until I'm an adult. And people can say, well, yeah, but you really had no choice. But then how did I ever change? If the environment that you're in is deterministic in that way and you don't have a choice ever, then how could I ever change? How could I ever make that decision to do better, to do different?
No, it's true. And then if it was, then two siblings who grew up in exactly the same environment, both of them would be criminals.
Right.
And there's evidence that that's not true. So then the next chapter is about school. The criminal rejects school long before it rejects him. He's bored and alienated because his objectives have little relationship to academic learning. Instead, he exploits the school using it as an area for crime or as a cover for it.
Yeah. As a little kid, I went every report card I ever had through elementary school said Michael continues to not live up to his potential. Every single one. That's what it always was. He's not meeting his potential. When I was, I think, 8, they gave me IQ test, high. They had what they called, I think, the Iowa test, high. Master's test, high. Everything was high except for the grades I got in school because I didn't care. I didn't want to do the work. What I would do is half-ass just enough to pass. And that's what I did up until I got to high school, and it worked. In the 8th grade, I got thrown out, but I had a tutor, and I still did just enough work to make it to get me to high school. In high school, though, the work was hard. It came too quickly. It didn't work. So I couldn't do what I had previously done. I couldn't half-ass it. But I used to go to school, dick around, get wise with the teachers, make jokes, whatever. Get home, there's homework. What? I got things to do.
I know you've answered this question before, but this is another thing that I just don't understand. When you were in school, right? What did you think the rest of your life was going to be? Or did you not think about it at all?
One time I thought to myself, I remember this clearly, I'll probably just change on my own. It'll just happen. Like, I won't have to do anything. So I was thinking, am I going to, what am I going to do? Because I had a teacher, he was 26, and he was a very nice guy. He tried his damnedest to help me out. And I was, 16. And I remember when I found out he was 26, I remember thinking to myself, well, I wonder what I'm going to be like when I'm 26. Like, am I going to be like him? What am I going to be, a criminal? And I thought, well, maybe I'll just grow out of it. Like, I won't, not I need to take steps to change, but maybe I'll just grow out of it. And then, like I told you, I remember once when I was 17 and I started feeling like maybe I wasn't going to be a criminal. Maybe I should move out of it. I just pushed those thoughts out of my head and just continued doing what I was doing.
I mean, did you not have career goals or like life goals?
I said I wanted to be a psychologist. The subject of psychology always interested me. The fact that I was, when I said I wanted to be a psychologist, I was 18 and still a freshman, maybe sophomore, depending on how the credits lined up, and was out doing robberies, getting drunk and smoking weed.
How did you hold that? Like, how did you hold that? I want to be a psychologist, but I don't care enough to go. How did that work in your mind?
I have no idea. I have no idea.
Be a psychologist, but I'm not going to go to school.
No idea. I knew. Well, I figured that I would go. I don't know. I mean, honestly, I don't know. I could try to come up with something, but I don't know. I knew that I was good at reading people. I knew that I understood why people did what they did, and I knew that the subject held a lot of interest to me. I was very introspective, and I know that's at that point, thinking about why I did what I did, but I just always blamed my parents. I mean, the introspection was, I'm suffering, I'm the way I am because of my parents.
That's fucking insane to me. Okay, so he says the criminal rejects school. Sorry, I'm just going through all of my questions. Okay, so he categorizes into like the students into 3 groups, right? And the one is people who drop out. The other one is people who are high intelligence.
That's true.
Really?
Trying to make sense out of things that don't make sense is hard. Yes.
No, like, for anybody who's watching this later, the comment was, I was never a gangbanger, but I was woke as fuck for a couple of years. Ask me to explain my reasonings, and I'll struggle. Trying to make sense of things that do not make sense is hard. I'm not saying that to make sense of things that don't make sense is easy, but it's strange for me because I remember my motivations for almost everything that I've done in my life ever, including the things that I did when I was a lot younger. I remember my motivations and I remember why they are stupid, but I remember my motivations. And so to me it's just strange.
Yeah.
So one kid said, if I could get all A's if I wanted to, but school sucks.
Yeah.
And there's this sort of belief that your performance is entirely within your control. And it sounds very much like you had a similar type of thought, right? That you thought that you'd be able to do it if you gave enough of a shit, but you didn't.
Part of me did, part of me didn't. I mean, it's a very mixed thing, very confused. I knew I was smart, but I thought the work was overwhelming. So I don't know. I don't have the answer to how I could say that. If I'm really pushed to it, the truth of the matter is I verbalized, yeah, I want to be a psychologist, but the truth was I never really thought I was going to be a psychologist. And that's, when I'm saying I'm going to be a psychologist, you're talking about a very short period of time that I'm saying that. Like maybe a few months.
Okay. So that's basically these two chapters, right? Peer pressure and school. And basically talking about how peer pressure isn't really a thing because the kids who get peer pressured into doing crimes wanted to do crimes anyway. Which is true, I think. Coming from an outside perspective of someone who was never in jail. No one ever pressured me into doing things that I wouldn't have done anyway. They gave me opportunities, but it was never the things that people tried to pressure me into doing that I didn't actually want to do.
You don't do them.
Yeah, you didn't do them. But like people tried to pressure me into doing things that I didn't want to do, and I didn't do it. But then when it was things that I was kind of, open to anyway. Did you ever use peer pressure as an excuse, or were you pretty open?
No, never. No.
So you were very like victimhood versus peer pressure.
My parents victimized me, not my peers. That's how I looked at it.
So that's these two chapters, the peer pressure and the school thing. And then next week we're talking about work. And then we go into other things.
And then we'll go into other things.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of chapters after that, but I mean, that's kind of all my questions for now.
Awesome.
Oh, wait, I have one more. One more. Did you ever give any fucks about education at all? Did education ever feel worthwhile to you?
No. I remember when I was 15 trying to talk my mother into letting me not go to school, and I told her, do you understand that to me going to school is like cutting myself with razors? I hate it that much.
Why?
I don't know. I didn't like it. What do you want from me? I didn't like effort at all. I didn't want to put in effort in anything.
I never wanted to put effort in either, but for me it's just difficult to understand because even when I was doing fucked up stuff, I still had this idea that there was a life that I wanted that wasn't drug addict or jail. And I knew that that's what I wanted, and that in order to not end up in a life that I didn't want, that I had to do things that I didn't want to do. Go to school, get into college. And it's just, I don't know, it's just strange to me to think that you didn't think that way.
No.
when I was younger, when I was about 12, my brother and I are basically the same person, and we used to complain to our parents that we were sick. I'm sick. I need to stay off school today. And my parents called it Jasonitis because my brother's name is Jason. And they said that I've got Jasonitis. One day when I was 12, my dad sat me down and he was like, listen, I'm so sick of you telling me that you're sick and that you can't go to school. If you don't want to go to school, don't go to school. And he said, I'm never going to ask you if you're really sick. So if you want to stay home from school, just tell me that you don't want to go to school and I'll let you do it. And I never took another sick day ever again. Once it was my responsibility, I was like, I can't skip school. So to me, it's so weird to think that you had opportunities and you had people that were trying to help you, and you're like, no, I want to do crimes.
Yes, and skip school.
And skip school and bully people. Okay, that was all my questions.
All right. Well, we will be doing Capitalist Corner tomorrow at noon. Tomorrow at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Persephone and I will be doing Everyday Ethics. Saturday at noon, and these are Eastern Time. Saturday noon Eastern Time. Jim Valiant and I on the Capitalist Corner weekend will be discussing deontological and teleological ethics. And then Monday we'll be back to do Capitalist Corner, Everyday Ethics, and Crime, Corrections, and Culture. Thank you, everybody, for your comments. Thank you for participating. And thank you, for Persephone, for being so, so wonderful. Good night, everybody.